Today is where we go through the Sabbath related verses here, and we finally wrap up the Book of the Covenant. We'll see actually in chapter 24, that's where we get this name, Book of the Covenant. Chapter 24, verse 7, Moses, then he took the Book of the Covenant and read it in the hearing of the people. So that's where we get the name for this section, which again is chapter 20, starting near the end of chapter 20. So that's going to be verse 22, and then going through the end of chapter 23. But with the Sabbath, what we see is essentially God is expanding to not just one day out of 7, but also 1 year out of 7. And we see that where you have to give 1 year. For 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its yield, but the 7th year you shall let it rest. So the idea here is that and he says this in other places in the Bible, that he's going to bless them so much in that 6th year so that then they will have enough crops for that 7th year. So the same kind of idea as what we've already seen with the manna from earlier in Exodus, how you have enough for each day, God's going to provide, and then on that 6th day, you get double. He provides enough for double, so that then you have stuff for the next day and don't have to work on that next day. Well, here, so that you don't have to harvest that 7th year, you let the ground recover, as it were. And you see that not only there, but you see these festivals, which are also times of a Sabbath rest. There's 3 main festivals that they had, and we'll get more into those in other parts. I know it's in Leviticus. We'll see that again in more detail. But here you've just got this pattern of rest, and it doesn't just go to one person. It goes to everyone in their vicinity. It doesn't just go to 1 day out of 7. It goes to 1 year out of 7. It goes to different other times out of maybe what we consider the norm in these festivals. So there's a number of ways that you have Sabbath now being applied specifically for the Israelites right now. You have them applied in their festivals and these different years and things like that. So we see this rest principle showing up, and then after that, then God continues by instead of having more commands, he now is wrapping this Book of the Covenant up by saying a promise, by saying as he goes through, he will go along with them. They will be together as they travel through the wilderness towards the promised land, and he is going to stay with them. There's this verse that mentions he'll send along the hornet, and there's a lot of questions about what that is. Is it literally he sends a bunch of hornets? Is that supposed to be a hornet, supposed to be a representative of some destructive angel that clears their path for them, perhaps, or that fights alongside them, or whatever that may mean as far as it being an angel? Or another suggestion I've actually run into recently is based on the Hebrew similarity with a word for essentially like leprosy, some kind of plague that goes before them. So people of the land that they're going to be running into are attacked by a plague before the Israelites get there. Whatever the case is, the point is, it doesn't really matter, I guess, the detail of that. The point is, God is supernaturally taking care of them, providing for them. He is going to bless them. He's going to bless those who bless them. He's going to curse those who curse them, just like he promised Abraham way back in Genesis chapter 12. So after that wraps up this Book of the Covenant. He gives some more commands like don't make a covenant with the people of the land. So this is now really pertaining to specifically traveling to that promised land. The people in the land, you don't make an agreement with them. They are to be destroyed. They are not to be your buddies. You don't make a covenant with these people. You don't make an agreement. You wipe them out. And so then they have the covenant between God's people and God now ratified, now inaugurated. He saved them. He's given them these commands. And of course, this is not extensive as far as this book of the covenant. This is not like this is every law that their society would have, but it is a representation that's showing some of the case laws that you're going to have for applying the moral law to civil, right? Moral law to the civil situation. So there can be plenty more. That's the nature of case laws. You're always like building those up. There's more and more as more cases come. And so here we have just a sampling of the case laws essentially. But then, so God has said, here's what's going on, and here's what you need to do. Here's what I've already done. Here's what you need to do, and there's the covenant. And it says in chapter 24, we see all this from the covenant. We see them kind of inaugurate this and make this agreement, where Moses reads. He takes this book of the covenant. He writes it down first, and then he reads it all to them. And this happens in the covenant, right? You have even not just reading it, but maybe even assigning, like we've talked about, assigning this time when maybe you're reading it to your people. And so here he's reading the covenant to the people, and then it says he sacrificed peace offerings, and then threw some blood on different places, including on the people themselves. This is part of the symbolism that they have there. As far like this blood, what is it supposed to be? There's a promise of you're committed to this covenant. If you break this covenant, this is you're going to be the bloody one. You're going to be the one that's cut up. This sort of thing. So this is part of their agreement, the oath that they're taking, the promise to fulfill their end of this. And then this amazing thing happens. No one has been allowed towards the mountain, but now, along with Moses, he gets to bring his brother Aaron, who's going to be the high priest, Aaron's two oldest sons, Nadab and Abihu, and then 70 of the elders. And they're all moving closer. They're all going towards God, and they actually all eat and drink. They eat a meal essentially with God. And it says in verse 10, they saw the God of Israel. So we don't know exactly how that may have happened. It's kind of confusing. How did they see him? But in some sense, they saw him. There was under his feet, so maybe they only saw his feet, as it were a pavement of sapphire stone, like the very heaven for clearness. And he did not lay his hand on the chief men of the people of Israel. They beheld God and ate and drank. So that's really amazing thing. They were able to do that, to see him in any capacity, that he allowed that. And so it's, you have this agreement, you have this deal, and then you're eating a meal together, a covenant meal, and kind of verifying this, and this is kind of signing on the dotted line sort of thing. So then you've got that covenant, and they've confirmed it, and this is moving forward. This is what their agreement is with God. This is how He is their God and they're His people, and then after that, you've got him saying, "Now, Moses, now you will come up to the mountain alone, further up the mountain, just you. And I'm going to give you essentially this document, right? These the stone tablets that are going to have the commandments on them." And so, and again, we've already got that book written, right? The book of the covenant's written. This is the first part. This is the first verses of chapter 20, which those commandments we will talk about in Deuteronomy, but that's what he's talking about now. And so you've got that. You've already had the reading of the law, the covenant, and it's marked in blood, and the covenant meal, and now he's going to give these tablets that they are going to need to be kept in the midst of the camp of God's people. And so here, you kind of wrapped up this whole covenant ceremony, and we're on to really what's going to be this very lengthy section about the tabernacle, where God's presence will be with His people. So it's hugely important that He is with His people. He's not a far off God. He's there with His people, and the tabernacle is where that presence will be. So you may have You might have been working on a tabernacle at this point, depending on if this is a school project and maybe that was one of your assignments. If that's the case, then at this point, you could, if this is okay as far as the plan goes for your specific schooling, you could skip the parts on the tabernacle, because you are actually working on it. You're clearly going to be having to read a lot of chapters in order to be able to get the, what does this look like? What's going on here? What needs to be here and there and wherever else, and build this thing. A lot of time, and maybe take that time to, instead of going through these videos, you might just be working on that. Now, on the other hand, I will be, as I go through that, be trying to point out ways in which all of this stuff does point us to Jesus. So I think that is still very valuable, even if you are personally working on kind of a model of this yourself. But that's going to be kind of up to whoever's making decisions about your curriculum, if you are doing this as a school thing. Otherwise, we, of course, like I just said, we're going to continue looking through this stuff and finding ways that it does point to Jesus. And that's just pretty much where we're wrapping up now. Moving on from the Book of the Covenant, where we saw just these ways that since we are saved by God, how should we live? That's what's the question for the Israelites, and here's the answer, right? You have these issues that we've looked at, and as far as servitude, as far as Sabbath, as far as social justice, taking care of the poor, the widows, the orphans, and then God's promise as they are moving through the wilderness towards the promised land. They're going to encounter enemies, how that's going to go, and ratifying this covenant and saying, all right, here's the agreement. We both sides have agreed on this, and moving forward with that, and both sides promising they are going to, they give an oath that they're going to follow, they're going to hold up their end of the deal. Of course, we know God will. Yeah, we'll see about the Israelites. We'll see about them pretty soon. But in the meantime, there's going to be a chapter after chapter of explaining how the tabernacle should look, how this place, this tent where God is going to dwell, should look. So that's going to do it for this lesson, and we'll see you next time talking about the tabernacle. Thank you for watching that video. I hope that it helped you learn a little bit more about the Bible today. And if you'd like to continue to learn more about the Bible, then we have plenty of other videos on the channel. And if this has been helpful for you, then you can always let me know by subscribing to the channel. And hopefully I'll be able to continue to help you learn even more about God's Word. Thanks.